Okay, we'll begin this hearing. I'll begin by reading the notice of public hearing. Notice it is hereby given that the following hearing will be held in the Bonneville County Courthouse, 605 North Capitol Avenue, Idaho, October 21st, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. by the Bonneville County Commissioners for the purpose of public hearing in relation to the application of Andrea Steffensen of Sunrise Peak Development for a zone map amendment from general commercial C2 to residential R-1.5 zone. General location of this is north of Wheelhouse Drive and 49th North, east of Ammon Road, and south of Prairie Highway, Bonneville County. There was a legal description published and also instructions on how to attend this. And this was published in the Post Register October 6th, 2021. Those present currently, Commissioner Brian Reed, Commissioner Roger Christensen, Commissioner Walker should be on his way. We'll note when he joins us because I know he's involved in another meeting. We also have members of planning and zoning staff here. And, way we'll proceed with this, and we'll begin first by we do have a copy of the minutes from the planning and zoning hearing. Without objection, we'll make those part of the hearing or part of the record. And we'll have planning and zoning staff, I don't know if it'll be Michelle or Austin, explain to us what happened, or what the application is, anything that you wish to point out. Then we'll have the representative or owner go ahead and present. Following that, we'll open it up to public hearing. So you're welcome to just sit there. The owl picks it up for everybody.
Okay, Michelle Hagan, Assistant Planner with Bonneville County Planning and Zoning Department. This is an application by Horrocks Engineering on behalf of Andrea Steffensen and Sunrise Peak Development LLC for the zoning map amendment from C2 to R1.5. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on September 22nd, 2021, in which they recommended approval by a 5-to-1 vote. The property is located on the south side of Highway 26, north of Wheelhouse Drive and 49th North, and east of the area known as Beaches Corner. The request is for a approximately 32-acre portion of approximately 34-acre parcel. The land use designation is mixed use. And here's our land use map on the screen. There is a commercial land use designation that is adjacent along the highway. The application states that the development would be serviced by Iona Bonneville Sewer District and Falls Water. The proposed R1.5 zoning district allows for single-family dwellings and zero lot line twin homes. The adjacent zoning districts, are residential park to the south, R3 to the west, and C2 south and west. And then you have agricultural zone to the east. Things to look at is potentially the comb effect with the commercial, and discuss compatibility and or adequate buffers between the different zones. We had comments from the Public Works Director, which hasn't changed since the Planning Commission. The typical conditions for rezoning for this particular case, we buffering where adjacent to existing commercially zoned properties and or the R3 zone property, and then platting would be required. And then I have the standard conditions with platting, such as central sewer plan for the long-term use of the area, landscaping along the arterial buffers, street lighting, no direct access onto an arterial roadway for residential lots. The preliminary plat shall be designed to address the issues of on-site drainage, and adequate paving shall be installed to meet the requirements of the county. The area and setbacks shall comply with applicable zoning district requirements. And the adequate plans be made to provide a viable system for potable water, irrigation, and fire protection, which will include hydrants to be installed within the development and provide for future extension of the county road system network by connecting to the existing road network. Any questions for me?
At this point,
I just have one. I don't recall, what's the RP?
Residential park, it's gonna have larger lots. We don't have too many of them. It's single family homes. And let me just double check.
Yeah, I didn't remember that one.
Yeah, it's not one we see much. We've certainly talked to people about that adjacent southerly property lately. Let's see, so residential park, single family dwellings. That's the main. Part of me was thinking it might have allowed for RVs, let's see, boarding, yeah. No, it's just single family dwellings.
Another residential zone classification.
Is there anything specifically unique about that compared to a R-1.5?
R-1.5 is going to have smaller lot sizes, and it will allow for the 0 lot line twin homes.
Right.
15,000 square feet or larger lot size is the minimum for the RP.
I must have missed that in the minutes. Was the application for an RP or is that just?
No, it's for a 1.1, but directly
Okay.
south of it, there's 2 lots that are RP.
Oh, okay.
Trying to,
Well, those are residential. That was a 2 lot subdivision. Okay.
that's the only question I have.
One thing that RP also does allow for is offices for professional persons and home occupations provided. So it lists that in several things for that.
That's- Just has a few more allowed uses than typical residential zone.
So it's kind of a cross between a large lot residential and commercial style where you can have an in-house office.
Yeah, you can, I think it gives you a little more flexibility with that in the home occupation. Let's see.
It allows some of the things that you would see in like the ag zone that we allow for use here, in like churches, public schools, that kind of stuff. It's more use hearing oriented in other zones is allowed in the RP zone. So just bigger lot sizes, more of a community area.
Okay. Others for now. Okay. The applicants here or representatives. Just pull up to the end of the table and you can do speak into the testimony. Owls.
Do you want me to do it after? Okay.
You're welcome to sit at the chair because the owl is your microphone.
Okay, perfect. Justin Scott, 2194 Snake River Parkway. I'm with Horrocks Engineers. Just first of all, I guess just want to thank Michelle for her comments and coordination efforts on this project and on this rezone application. And thank you for your time and meeting with us. Just a couple points, just wanted to make. So as Michelle stated, this is a mixed use designation for the comp plan, which which does allow for commercial and residential. And so, we ultimately, we do meet the code there, and allowing for residential. And, we're shooting for the R1.5. But ultimately, I think we'll be kind of landing right around the 10,000 square foot lot sizing, but R1.5 just allows a little bit more flexibility. So that's the reasoning for that. And so I know there was some discussion on, the comb tooth effect, as Michelle mentioned, with being commercial along the frontage, and wanted to see that. And in looking at that, the comprehensive plan for Bonneville County does have commercial that goes about a half a mile from Beach's Corner, from that intersection, before it stops and then turns into a mixed use zone, which a portion of this property has commercial on it along that frontage. And then, the rest of this, which is what the application is for the mixed use zone or mixed use designation. Which the mixed use is a good transition area between commercial and agriculture, which is what you see further going east down the highway. So we feel like this would be a good spot for this residential. We feel like, it does meet code, meets the intent of the county's planning. And just want to, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
You said it allows for more flexibility. What type of flexibility are you talking about?
Well, as Michelle stated, it allows for the 0 lot line twin homes. And so ultimately it just does allow for some variations of residential development. But as I said, ultimately the developer's looking for something right around 10,000 square foot lots. And so that's what we're planning on doing.
In the 1.5, is that the minimum?
No, the minimum for R1.5 is actually smaller.
I think it's,
It's 6,000.
yeah.
Go down to. Now, when you're doing a single family dwelling, you have I think a different, you can do 6,000 square feet for a single family dwelling, 5,200 square feet for the twin homes. You have two different minimum square footage requirements in that zone, depending on the housing type that you
Okay, so
that you
these
apply
would
to.
be 10,000 square feet that would allow for twin homes. So you've got two homes.
Yeah, I mean, you could, just has that flexibility to do some larger lots or some smaller lots, just kind of as the market allows for or is needing. So you could have a mixture of housing types to kind of accommodate housing.
How about, is that pretty much the mixture, twin homes or residential?
Yes, you
That's
can,
all that's allowed.
Yeah,
you can do single family or twin homes. Duplexes are not one of the allowed housing types out there
Or
in that zone.
apartments or?
yeah.
Correct. You cannot do 3 triplexes or 4plexes in that zone.
Okay. In the minutes, there's a lot of discussion about access. Because McKinsey Drive has not been accepted yet, built and accepted. That would be an issue with the planning process to be able to get a permit. But I remember when we were doing the comprehensive plan, I think in this area, I don't know if you guys were around then, but the highway department talked like they weren't willing to give any accesses on the 26. Has that changed?
So I have spoken with ITD and they would allow an access point on this property, just being the spacing of access is kind of is what they go off of. And the spacing from intersection to intersection would allow for one approach to come off of this property on the 26.
Yeah, but anything you could submit to us from IDOT or from highways?
Not at this moment. I've just had those preliminary conversations with them, and I've let them know what we are proposing and what we're looking at, and kind of some rough lot counts of what this could be. And they said they would be open to it and would allow it. It's all based on spacing of intersections, and so.
Yeah, roughly, what would those lot counts be?
I believe, just off the top of my head, I think what we had looked at for this area was about 70.
And the reason I asked about the other access is you need two accesses for
Yeah.
emergency. Obviously, Highway 26 has its own safety issues, but also 49th North is becoming quite congested. Have you done any traffic studies on this?
We have not at this time, no. And I think you said the Mackenzie Drive has not been accepted by the county. I think it's Wheelhouse Drive. It's not, but I believe
Wheelhouse, okay.
Mackenzie Drive has been platted and accepted by the county, if I'm correct on that.
Right, I was looking at Mackenzie on the.
It's on the west side of the property.
Right.
On the south, Wheelhouse Drive has been built. And then talking with Lance, it has not been accepted by the county, just because at the time that it was built, it wasn't built to the county standards. And so in order for it to be accepted, it's platted and turned over to the county, but it's not been accepted just because it doesn't meet those standards. So in order for the county to accept it, it would have to be brought up to county standards. So.
And in order for you to have a second access, would that to be on an accepted road? You're probably aware of that.
That would be a third access point. Correct.
Because of the Mackenzie Drive.
Yeah.
I don't believe
Mackenzie not been built,
that
yeah.
Mackenzie has been built yet. It's been platted and they plowed it out to dirt. It's dirt all plowed out, but they haven't
Okay.
paved it and it hasn't been accepted by road.
That's
Yeah.
probably why I was thinking of that, because there's been a lot of discussion with
Yeah.
Yeah.
concerns with the owners that have had that to get that thing developed.
And we are aware of the 2 access requirements. We are aware of that for fire code. And, obviously that's something, if we are approved for this, we would have to work that out before we can, in the preliminary plat stages and final plat, so.
Now, the cone tooth, I mean, that was a discussion a lot in here and what we had done on that, another decision.
Yeah,
And brought that up. I know P&Z was concerned about that. How does this not add to the cone tooth?
just in looking at the comprehensive plan, I know there had been talks about another piece of property, and what they were ultimately trying to do is amend the comp plans to change what planning and zoning had already deemed would be commercial along the highway. And I think what differentiates what we're doing is, the comp plan has come, put the commercial designation stops about a half a mile from that intersection. And then from there, it goes into a mixed use zone, which allows for either residential or commercial. And so at some point, there would be a transition from commercial to agriculture. And so, that's kind of where residential comes in, is it would be that transition point. And so, the talks were just, yeah, there is commercial along there. However, at what point do you allow residential to start coming up and being along the highway? And so, and you're looking at the comp plan, we feel like, planning is already planned that out by, creating these mixed use zones, which allow for residential to be along the highway.
I don't know if you can pull the map back up. Because right at the peak of that, show me where Egan's Greenhouse is.
Right here.
Right there, because that's.
No,
No,
it's
down
the
the
one,
middle.
Austin.
Oh, is it?
It's that one,
Oh,
yeah.
it's a smaller one.
Yeah, and the parcel just to the right of there, that's commercial as well per the comp plan designation, and that's part of this property. So a part of the property has commercial on it, and this portion of the property is mixed use.
You say to the right of it, that little square?
Just to the right of his, where his
Greenhouse.
cursor's at,
That's the comp plan.
yeah.
You say it's designated commercial, not mixed use?
So you can see commercial along the highway, it stops about, and that's about a half a mile from the intersection at Beach's Corner.
Okay, how about up the end of after Egan's though?
From the end of Egan's.
Yeah, with the end by Egan's, because that's commercial use.
Yeah, and you can see there's Egan's is up there. If you wouldn't mind highlighting that, Austin. Egan's is right there. And just to the right of that, if you slide over, there's kind of that parcel or that piece right there. And that's part of this property is commercial as well.
Yeah, trying to see where your cursor's pointing.
Right. So Egan's is right there.
Oh, okay, I thought you were pointing up at the very.
No.
Egan's is there, and then that's the commercial strip that's next to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand.
The parcel has a split land use designation
Yeah.
that Steffensen's own, and so they cannot apply to change the zone to a residential zone when you have the commercial land use designation on that portion. So that's, they came in with the rezoning application to apply to rezone the area that had the mixed use land use designation.
And what happens to that little strip of commercial?
It would
Which.
stay
which
commercial unless
it'll-
unless it ever at any point went through a comp plan change, but
Yeah.
as of right now, it stays commercial, so.
Is it a usable sized piece that you leave?
Yeah, I think it's 2.5 acres or so, I think, 3 acres, so.
That's most of my question.
Yeah, and they were many that I had as well, but I guess just to follow up on that, I'm a little bit confused. So when this is a C2, this piece that we're considering,
Yes, now it is zone C2.
when did it receive that?
When was the? I don't know, I don't recall when the property was originally designated as C2. I don't have that information.
And maybe that's the hearing I was thinking about when we got the information from the highway. About the difficulty getting access there.
It's been quite a while. I want to say at least close to 2000s. Because that's when they did the beach stuff. Steve, do you remember?
Yeah, Commissioner, this is Steve here. They did, it was back in the 2000 range when they did the rezone out there. Conditions on that at the time, they had controlled access getting onto Highway 20, where they were limiting the access, the approaches on it was no new approaches between Egan's greenhouse and the existing approach that's off on the far east end of the property, where they have a shared approach that comes into the home on the east. At that time, they were proposing not to allow any additional access points. And ITD was concerned at that time of being any residential uses, but confirming that they were more okay with the commercial designation on the land use, but controlled access.
Okay. I have some concern with pinning in McKay Acres a little bit. It would be that it would remain that commercial, right? And then it's pinned in pretty well. Did you receive any comments or
From them,
opposition from that one?
no, we did not receive any comments from them.
Okay.
I have a note here on sewer capacity. So I think part of the discussions we've had up in that area as I am in Bonneville had concerns with the size of the pipe going north and down Long Island Road. That's when we were doing the Beach's Corner RV down. talking about possibly having to upgrade that. No, that was before we had a lot of the red rock and a lot of those that are hooking in to that line now. Do you have any idea if there's any capacity concerns with that in Waterville?
I don't, I just know that there is services stubbed to the lot. And so as far as capacity, that would have to be discussions with them.
I called IBSC and the woman that I spoke to there didn't see any concerns with residential. She said that the system that was put there for the McKay acres was more than adequate to have additional capacity. That's what I was told on the phone. We have not received any will serve letters at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I might just add, just so that it's on the record. I guess I realize that this is different than the plating. I think there's going to be some challenges in the plat. But that would be for you to work through.
Yeah.
You know, if the zone change is permitted, I just think there's a little bit of a risk there.
Well, kind of along those lines, looking at that area in general, trying to keep a commercial node. That's the way these originally started. We tried to identify nodes for commercial service. And it seems like with some of the developments across the street, I think that Freedom Acres is out.
On the north, it's on the north side of the highway.
On the other side, restricting the commercial area. I know that was part of the discussion. We keep squeezing out the commercial and increasing the residential, trying to find a balance there. Your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, no, I can understand the concern, I don't think, just some of that discussion was had with the planning and zoning was just, we try and preserve agriculture, right? And we also would like to do the same with commercial. But at some point it's gotta have a transition, and being that it is a mixed use, ultimately it is within reason to change that, to rezone that. And I do understand that, but at some point it's gotta change too, right? And I guess just to add to that, if the need for commercial was there, I think it certainly would stay commercial. But however, as we're seeing growth in the county and seeing, need for housing, I think, you're seeing a lot more of that go. And so, just trying to fill the needs and of the county there. So, but as you can see, just west of there's a lot of open commercial that's not built on and that's vacant. So
Isn't that due to the water issues and trying to get some of those resolved that have been going on for quite a few years?
no, that's a good question, yeah.
Because I know there's been some real challenges getting things cleared up to get that to develop. But it's hard to speculate.
Yeah, exactly. It is hard to speculate, maybe the challenges were already worked through, but maybe not too. So.
Commissioners, again, this is Steve Steer. Just to add a few additional comments on it. To understand, the mixed use is the uses that are designated within the mixed use zone are those that can be considered. In considering those uses, you have to take in light consideration of the overall development policy. Not all uses are automatically allowed because you need to look at where appropriate locations are and matching them up, and it's not a guarantee that no matter what if it's mixed use, that I can get any particular zone. You have to do the consideration within that mixed use area as to what is appropriate. So the questions you're having is it appropriate, is legitimate to be considered in discussion on this rezone request as to what the trend might be in the future. And keep in mind that this plan is not a 1-year plan or 2-year plan. It's 20 and 30 years out, pre-designating land uses so that they can be protected and preserved for expansion in the future.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think that's all for me, unless you have any other questions.
We may, after some public
Okay.
testimony and whatever.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
With that, we'll open it up unless the owners wish to add to the engineers. If not, we'll open it up for public
that?
testimony.
You don't have to do it in the hearing, I guess you can give your input right now.
I can talk now or
Yeah,
later, it doesn't
okay.
matter.
Come up here and state your name and address.
I'm Andrea Steffensen. My address is 1655 Shady Pine Drive in Idaho Falls. And I am one of the owners of Sunrise Peak Development, who owns the property that we're talking about. The other owners who are also here today are Rand and Beverly Olson with Rand Olson Construction, and Dan and Connie with Finder Excavation, Dan Moulton. And the reason why we have acquired this property and are trying to move forward with the rezoning, like Justin with Horrocks said, is to build residential properties. I know it came up like the twin houses, and everything he said was accurate in terms of what we're trying and hoping to do. The reason why we're hoping that this can go through is we really, Rand Olson Construction has been a builder in the area for 40 years. Dan Moulton has been doing excavation in the area under his own company for 15 years and prior to that. And we have noticed that there's a huge problem in terms of trying to find residential land. We looked probably for about 2 years together to try to find some residential land that would work. And it's been a big issue we've been in with Austin, trying to figure out several pieces of land and working with Horrocks, and ultimately decided that this would be a really good option for us. We are all from Idaho Falls. Most of us were born and raised here. Our intent on this project is that we will develop it, and Rand Olson Construction, who is one of the owners, will build all of the houses on it. Our intent is not to sell lots out to try to turn it fast. Our plan is, we always use local subcontractors, buy local, do all that. And our plan is that we would split it up into 2 or 3 phases based upon how many lots fit in the recommendations of Horrocks and what would potentially get passed. And our plan is that we would build, approximately 12, maximum 15 houses a year. We're not going to come in here and try to blow it all out and do it as fast as we can. Rand Olson Construction is a very high-end reputable builder. Our intent is not to build a whole bunch of twin houses or anything like that. We really are wanting to do like a higher end custom subdivision. With that being said, we want to keep the houses to a more manageable size. We feel like there's a need for a more manageable size house with a 3-car garage on a good sized lot. So that is kind of our plan in terms of what our development would look like. And ultimately, I just wanted to come in and speak on behalf of Sunrise Development, that you knew that we were local people who were committed to the community, have been here, been watching the building and development for a really, really long time in the area. And that we weren't just some new company coming in from out of state to try to do something and drop and run, that we were here to really for the long haul and see, where the direction in which residential is headed and stuff like that. And it's hard. Finding residential land is really hard. There's a lot of commercial land, but we are residential builders. So that's why we kind of took on this piece of land. And like you had said, with the risk of the road accesses and stuff like that, we had Horrocks do all of the comprehension or the preliminary plans, what's it called, feasibility reports and stuff like that. So we did not go into it blindly knowing that, or thinking that everything would just be easy and that there wouldn't be any trials that we would come across. But we still feel like with the mixed use and what our plan is and the lack of residential property, that it was a good risk for us to take. So if you had any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Just maybe a comment, because I'm familiar with a lot of the names that have been here, and I agree. They're good, reputable individuals and companies. We have to make it as if, because once we zone it, there's no guarantee we can't block you guys out from ever selling it to somebody else in the future. It may not be your intent, but when we make the decision, it has to do with how it could be developed by
Right.
whomever. The other question I've got, you said that there's a lack of, not a demand for commercial property. Are you familiar with the Anderson development about a mile down the highway?
I'm aware of it. I'm not like super familiar with it.
Yeah, because that's one, is that, what zone is that? Is that C2?
C2.
C2? Yeah, that's developing and selling quite well.
Yeah.
You know. So those are the things we kind of weigh in the demand of the nature of the area and how it should fit.
Absolutely. And we absolutely, respect the planning and what the county's trying to do. And when we were looking for land within Idaho Falls or Ammon or the county, it was really difficult for us to try to find a piece of property. And I'm actually, although I'm a separate entity in this partnership with Sunrise Development or Sunrise Peak, I actually work for Randallson Construction and they're my parents. And our goal is that this is a several-year plan. This is not something that we're trying to make a quick buck and get out of it fast. This is something that we're committed to as perhaps Rand personally gets closer to retirement and, in 5 to 7 years, and we are taking over that family-owned business. We and my brother, who's here too, Jeff Olson, are very committed to that. This is something that we're committed to for a long time. It's not just to get in and get out and get done as quick as we can.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone else? Seeing no other public testimony, do we have any other input from planning and zoning that they would like to have on record?
Not that I can think of at this time.
Steve?
We do have some previous decisions that we've considered as far as distance from central areas where the commissioners have made decisions on residential development. It's something that if you're consistent in your decision processes, that you need to look at this one to make sure that we are making consistent, appropriate decisions based on location of properties, similar to the pieces that we had south of town. And then also to consider actually the trending to be able to service that number of homes that far out. Road and Bridge has normally made comments on those increasing the densities of properties. So all those factors need to be considered in increasing the density of that area to the residential uses.
Austin? Okay, I have no other questions, so we'll close this hearing to public comment. We'll take the issue under advisement. P&Z will come up with a proposed findings we won't discuss that, but they'll come up based on the discussion here and the points that have been brought up. And then we'll meet, usually we do that on Wednesdays at the Road and Bridge meeting. It's not a public hearing. We don't send out the notices. But we do post it with 48-hour notice that we'll be meeting to make a decision. It'll be a public meeting, anybody can attend, but we won't take any testimony. So with that, thank you. We stand adjourned.